my friends, welcome back to a new video. Today we'll be talking about the upcoming full moon, which is coming up on October 9th. I will give you an intuitive update. How can you sense the energy? What can you do with it? How can you use it for manifestation? But more importantly, for releasing the past and healing the wounds, because right now you may probably feel it. It's all about the shadow work, because it's actually really intense energy present right now. And to everyone who is in tuning with yourself, your essence, your true self, you may feel that intense energy. Like it kind of feels like there would be a battle between your old self and your true self. It's not an actual battle, but you're jumping from your true self, from the essence of being, into the old version of yourself. And then those repetitive patterns which are still repeating, like certain beliefs that are coming up from the past, certain thoughts, emotions, of course, coming from the past. And we kind of feel controlled by all this thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. And of course, because of all of that, we fall into old behaviors, we fall into old habits, and we start repeating the cycles. But at the same time, there's awareness of the essence, consciousness of the true self, which is observing that happening. And because we are not as evolved yet, that we would just quit that, we would say, well, I'm not that, so goodbye, and we would stay true selves. We're jumping from purest version of being into the poisoned version of being, and we are acknowledging these different states of being, and we are kind of deciding what just feels better, what just feels more as us and less of the programs that we've adopted from society. So I'm going through it as well. Like, I think every one of us is going through it. And for me, I've noticed, like, few days ago, I've just started falling off the track. And then as I was observing my life, I've noticed, well, why I'm repeating these old patterns? And, then I do my things, whatever helps me to get back in alignment with me, even though it's a word we are often using, but still, usually meditation helps me to remind myself, well, I was too distracted, I fallen off that, and it's time to do something about my actions, right? And it's really, really important that we become really easy on ourselves, like not being so pushy. Because, sometimes we may push ourselves to become better because we don't like how we are. But as long as we don't like how we are, we will never be better. Because even if we adopt what we call better behaviors and better thoughts, we'll still stay in that belief state that we are not good enough. We want to be better. As long as we want to be better, we will never be good enough. So once we accept what we are doing as a part of evolution, a part of transformation, a part of change, we'll notice that it's okay to move through everything. It's okay to feel what we are feeling. It's okay to fall off the track. It's all a natural process. For me as an artist, when I'm painting, like almost every single painting, at some point I think I'm failing it. At some point I think like I did something wrong. And at some point it feels like I'm losing that thing, I'm losing flow. Like something kinda dragged me off the flow. But then as I'm keeping up, I noticed that actually I've just surrendered to the true flow, and it led me into a bit different direction than I thought I need to go. And at the end, the painting is different than I saw it firstly in the vision, or I was visualizing it, or I was thinking about it, but it ended up even much better. So it's same with all the cycles that are happening right now, as we are shifting and transcending. So much of the old patterns are coming up into the center of our awareness, and it's truly an important time to acknowledge that. But at the same time, don't judge yourself for that. Don't feel bad about it, even though you may experience lower emotions and you may experience more dense energies and heavier energies. Acknowledge it, feel it, and learn to release it. Usually when we just decide to feel what we feel, what is not serving us anymore will just be released. So the first thing that you may notice with this full moon is that so many repetitive patterns are coming up, so you can enlighten them, right? Because healing never takes place just because we want to become a better version. Healing happens once we enlighten what we call a darkness or inner demons or heavier energy. Once we enlighten what is not serving us anymore, we acknowledge it. We can, if it helps, you can write it down. You can observe yourself. Yeah, this happened, and after that experience I've started behaving differently. There was a traumatic experience, and it caused me to be in that state, or to stay in that state, in the sensations, and because you had no idea how to deal with that, you've suppressed it. And what we suppressed will never disappear. It will only become stronger, and at some point it will start manifesting in our lives in much harder way. That's why it's so important to heal the wounds, to acknowledge what is not helping us to grow anymore, what is truly not helping us to become who we want to become, or who we are meant to become. So acknowledge what is coming up and, release it. Be aware of it. Observe yourself and release it. There's so much of beautiful energy that will be experienced once you learn to release without judgment, without any blame. Just learn to release it. So the second thing that you may recognize right now, and with this upcoming energy of the full moon, is deeply connected with relationships in our lives. I've noticed that so many people from my past started coming back into my life with a different understanding. Like, relationships are slowly coming back together, and sometimes it's like to see, every time we are kind of upgrading, we are approaching things differently, we are acting differently, we're behaving differently. And those are actually beautiful tests to see how much we've embodied that greater understanding of ourselves, especially when something from the past comes up into this present time and you deal with it, and you see how much differently, or how much more compassionately, or how you're just, from that greater understanding or upgraded understanding, how differently you're approaching things, how differently you're connecting with things or people or experiences or moments or whatever. So a beautiful time to reflect on our relationships, because maybe if for you old people are people from your old life are coming back into your life, recognize how much you've changed, maybe how much they've changed, and how less can you emotionally react to any of those experiences. Also, when it comes to our family, if there are still any wounds related to this family tree or certain connection to a certain person, like mother, father, brothers, sisters, people which are the closest to us. If there's any emotional wounds connected to that, it will most probably come up right now. And it's an important time to go past the triggers and try to deal with that. Like just a few days ago, I had a truly beautiful conversation with my parents, and we were actually talking about the things we were triggered in the past so much, like nobody wanted to talk about it. But it was so different this time. It was like a release of so much heaviness. We were talking about, how I felt when I was little, and how they felt completely differently, or how they thought completely differently of how I'm feeling and how I was actually feeling. When we actually explain to each other how we feel, we help each other to understand us much better, and we help to understand each other much better. So it is something truly important, and what I think that we really need right now is to learn to be vulnerable with people around us, learn to be open, learn to be as honest as you can. And just yesterday somebody wrote me like, I can't be vulnerable with people which will later use my vulnerability against me. And that's true. But at the same time, people which are using your vulnerability against you are using it because that's the only thing they know. They were trained to be like that because once they were vulnerable and somebody used it against themselves. So, of course, it's important to be vulnerable with people who are ready to listen, who are compassionate enough to understand your vulnerability and to accept you as you are. But at the same time, we also need to give a bit of it to people who don't understand that yet. To become an example of vulnerability and the power of vulnerability. That's where we need to build that muscle that maybe somebody may use it against yourself. But as long as you know yourself, as long as you know why you're doing it, not just to get something in return, like a hug or something, but to be vulnerable because you want to give a certain pain out. And when something is made by honesty, when something is made truly with open heart and expressed with honesty, people will feel it and people will understand it. So of course make sure that you are open and vulnerable, especially to people who will understand you. But if you have a certain tension between somebody, be open with them. It will help you so much to heal your heart, to release the emotions which are not serving you anymore, because at the end of the day, you're doing it for yourself. Like if somebody will decide to walk with you on that path, it's okay. But if they want to use it just against you, well, let them go. You most probably don't need people like that in your life. So see what will happen. Be truly compassionate towards yourself, and always remember that you're doing those things for yourself. When you're healing the relationships, of course, we all want to see that also other people would go through that healing, and they will, because it's always like that. Once we heal something about ourselves, if that emotional wound was connected with a certain person in our life, that person will experience that healing as well. So always be honest firstly with yourself to see what are you moving through, and then also learn to be more honest with others. It's all about that energetic connection, If you are vulnerable but at the same time you hold tension and you're triggered by the response of that person, then there's still so much of heaviness present in that relationship, and it requires a lot of more work, a lot of more consistency with that process, and it's all okay. Don't rush things. You don't need to rush anything. And at the same time, we're deepening heart connections with people right now, especially with people who decide to walk that path with us. So we may recognize that more people are coming to you to maybe to help you or to just walk with you, to, people with whom you can relate, and that's something truly beautiful. So if that is happening to you right now, I just want you to know that it's something natural, something which is a part of this evolution, of this process that is happening on a let's say vibrational level. So just be patient with yourself, and with everything that's happening, be patient. The third thing that is happening with this full moon is that a lot about this energy is kind of encouraging us to strengthen the practice of letting go. So letting go is something we hear often, right? It's something we may often hear in spiritual communities, in practices when it comes to self-development and self-growth and self-improvement. And it's amazing because letting go is so helpful, but letting go does not happen by saying, I let go of this. Letting go of something may happen when we reflect and become aware and observe the things we are doing, like the aspects of ourselves which we want to, something that we want to release in those aspects. If there's something like a belief or a certain pattern you want to let go of, you've probably noticed that it's really hard to release something. It's really hard to let go of it. But if you observe it, if you observe that part of yourself or that doingness or that belief, and you feel it, you may fully acknowledge it. Once you feel it, you can ask yourself, is this in alignment with yourself? And the energy will tell you yes or no. You will feel if it's not in alignment with yourself, the release will happen by itself. By acknowledging it, becoming aware of it, feeling it, and when you feel something, you will know that release happened. For example, you observe a certain belief, you soon recognize, well, it's not who you truly are, and release will just happen. But because we don't stay consistent with that purest version of ourselves, we fall back into our old patterns. That's why we're jumping from a new state of being to an old state of being. That's why we need to remember our true selves. Remember how it feels to be a purest version of ourselves. That's why we need to remember who we are, so we can get as often as we remind ourselves to that purest version of being. And that's why it's important to take breaks in our days and ask ourselves, how are we doing? Are we following our values? Are we doing what is important to us? Are we distracting ourselves? How are we feeling? What kind of emotions are again coming up? What kind of thoughts are coming up when we catch ourselves that we are thinking? And so on. And doing that work is helping us to ascend our energy, because, it's all about consistency, but it's all about awareness as well. Being aware and staying aware, and ascending with that awareness. Because when you're sensing that there's a lot of heaviness present within you, it's nothing wrong with that. You're just expanding your awareness about yourself. And that's why you may recognize that in the past you were doing things because of certain motivations and aspirations, and maybe you're recognizing that those motivations and aspirations and reasons are not in alignment with you anymore, which doesn't mean that you should stop doing what you're doing, but maybe you should reflect your values once again to recognize, are those actions aligned with your values? Or maybe are there certain other reasons that are more important to you right now than what was important to you in the past. And it's all a moment of reflection. It's all a process actually of reflection. So be conscious with that. Then the fourth thing that is coming with this full moon, and that the energy that is present, is an energy which can actually help us to break the old habits which have no place in our lives anymore. So as we are building awareness, we'll recognize that our life is made out of tiny little habits, and in order to experience a new life, we firstly need to break the old habits, right? And habits are great. Habits are the programs we install into our subconscious mind, so we can start acting and behaving automatically in certain ways and areas and aspects. So to break a habit means that you stop repeating something. And as we stop repeating something, at the same time we ask ourselves what we want to do, right? Because we can't just stay doing nothing. So if we don't define what is the new version of ourselves, how we are acting, how we are behaving, we'll most probably again fall into old habits. So we need to define the new ones, so we can start applying them, so we can start nurturing them, so they can become a new way of being. And breaking the old habits right now is something really, really strong, really powerful, and many people are doing that. That's why there's a lot of that tension present, because, we are kind of coming up against ourselves when we are breaking a certain habit, because we are dealing with something which we were designing and repeating for such a long time. For some people it may be 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And suddenly we decide to stop doing it. Of course it's unpleasant. And when more people start doing that, there's a lot of that, heavy energy present, because suddenly we feel kind of in tension. But at the same time, we fall in love with that new version of ourselves. But because we don't know how to stay in that new version, we are again falling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's what's happening. So again, be patient with yourself and see how much you're evolving, see how much you're growing and expanding. And always remind yourself who you are becoming. Always have that vision. Start your day with a vision of who you are becoming. What's your body posture? What's your mind? Where your mind is? How you're thinking? What are your beliefs? Or what you want to believe in? How you want to feel? And see how much every single day you can get closer to that purest version of yourself. And acknowledge it and remember it. Then the fifth thing I want to give you here is to also train yourself, to reward yourself for all the growth that took place in your life. This is a reminder that I wanted to give you because it's just something we forget often. When we're moving through, certain changes and transformation, we are often focused just on who we want to become and what we want to manifest and results we want to experience. But more important than that is a reminder that we are actually changing, that we are growing, that we are releasing the past. And reward yourself, celebrate yourself. So much is changing in your life. So it's time to celebrate yourself. It's not an easy path you're walking on. So make it a bit easier by rewarding yourself, whatever it means to you. Reward yourself and celebrate your greatness. Because, it's not easy to move through it. So it means that you are truly tapping into inner greatness, that you're able to move through what you're moving through right? So, my friends, I'm sending you lots of love, blessings, and power. Have a beautiful day, and I hope you've enjoyed in today's painting. It's a new painting, I've just finished it today. It's called Creating Your Own World. And it's a painting which to me represents that creative process of an artist who is kinda, in the clouds, dreaming, and then he or she, whoever, decides to make something out of it, to, take on your responsibilities and actually put your dreams into action, into motion. Start creating. Doesn't matter what people think about you, doesn't matter how things look on the surface. You know that you're doing an internal work, and what you're working on, if it is truly important to you, you will do your best to make it happen. So, my friends, till next time, I'm sending you lots of love, blessings, and power. Once again, to everyone who would like to support my art, you can find my Etsy shop, I Draw My Passion. Thanks to all of you, you're all truly appreciated. And to find daily reminders, you can go and check out my Instagram page, AttractPassion. And to find my art gallery, go and check out my other Instagram page, I Draw My Passion. Go there and check it out. Till next time, one love.